Recovery Sort Of is a podcast where we discuss recovery topics from the perspective of people living in long-term recovery. This podcast does not intend to represent the views of any particular group, organization, or fellowship. The attitudes expressed are solely the opinion of its contributors. Be advised, there may be strong language or topics of an adult nature.
Welcome back. It's Recovery Sort Of. I'm Jason, a guy who thought he was honest.
And I'm Billy. I'm a person in long-term recovery.
And we're going to talk about honesty today, which is, we've done that once before. We have an honesty episode, but we decided, I believe, that we're going to try to do a spiritual principle each month this year, the new 2022. I know it's been 2022 for a few weeks now when you're listening to this, but it is fresh as we record it.
Yeah, just starting for us.
Yeah. So we're going to get into that. Some of our recap. I definitely wanted to go back and thank everybody who's donated to the show. You can donate on our website, recoverysortof.com. There's a donation tab, and you can click right on that and set up a donation. And we appreciate that. Sarah and Julie, who are our regular monthly contributors, they've signed up to do that every month. We really appreciate that. Sarah actually reached out to us. She shared her Spotify year in review with us, and it is a shit ton of minutes she listened to. It's like almost 1,500 minutes of
Thank you so much.
Us bullshitting.
It's probably more than I've listened to.
I was like, I hope it was helpful. Hope it wasn't a total waste of time. And another thing, we made another top list, another top recovery podcast list, and the Sober Gratitudes podcast actually reached out to us and shared it with us. They said we were on there along with them, and you can find that on, I can't read all that, but it's some sobriety podcasts on FeedSpot list, and we were like number 3, and I was like, damn, that's awesome. And we got a couple of Christmas donations, which was really nice.
Oh,
like
yay.
End of year Christmas thing. So thank you everybody who's contributed, and we definitely appreciate that.
Yeah, and that money goes to help people in recovery. We don't keep any of it or profit for any of it, you know.
Yeah.
Jason has set up a way to donate that back to the recovery community. So any donations or sponsorships that we get all go to helping other recovering people. Yeah,
we're not over here getting rich. Actually, we just found out that some of our donation money went to a family that I think it was a single mom in recovery, didn't have any Christmas gifts for her kids. Like maybe she was fresh in. I don't know the whole story, but I was being told that, you know, some of our money helped to supply some things they needed for the kids. And I don't know, warmed my heart a little bit. It's always nice to feel like you're doing something.
Yeah, that's definitely pretty cool.
Yeah. So, on with the honesty. I don't have any idea what the hell we said on our last honesty episode, but I did find it fascinating that we're going to record this today, and last night I lied. I texted my daughter something that was not true, and I was like, well, you know, justifying it. Well, it would be true, right? They haven't said anything because they're nice people, but they would say this thing that I said they said. Wow. Here I am, lying. Right before honesty.
And I vaguely remember the last episode on honesty, and what I remember taking away from that, going into that, I would have said that I'm a completely honest person. And when we came out of that one, I realized that I was not a completely honest person, and that I had some areas in my life that I was still dishonest. And coming into this one, I realized I think I'm okay with that. That the areas that I'm not overly honest in, you know, like I'm okay with that. I don't know that any principles or, you know, these morals that I need to live by are like 100% all the time, no matter what, you're just honest. Like, I don't know that. I mean, it's possible to live that way, but I don't know that it's the best way to practice that principle, or any principle for that matter.
Yeah, which is fascinating, and I think that might be a recurring theme. I guess we'll find out as we go through this year and do a spiritual principle each month. The idea that, like, I've always considered that these are, you know, checked or unchecked boxes. Like, you're either honest or you're not.
Right.
And, the information I've always been given is like, you just get honest. Like that's just what you do. You're honest in all cases, all the time, no exceptions. And if you're not, you're going to pay the spiritual price for it. And reading some information about honesty and this idea, like, it's, they talked about honesty being a virtue, and that Aristotle's view of virtues was that you were supposed to find the balance between two opposites, right? It's not necessarily that like with a virtue, you're supposed to just do it or not do it. It's like finding the middle path, as Buddhism would say, with all these things. And I think what I realized going into this episode a little differently, like I was the same way as you last time. I was like, yeah, I'm an honest guy. That's just what I am, right? And I realized I wasn't. And now this time realizing just how many ways I'm not honest was what I was thinking about coming into this. I mean, and the ways that I'm totally okay with not being honest. If I think the world is messed up, then I'm fine with being dishonest to make it work to my advantage, right? If I was seeing people who were trying to get government benefits, and to me the government benefit system like disqualified them over some bullshit, I'm totally lying, and I don't give a fuck about that. I'm like, yeah, that's bullshit. Like,
well,
these people deserve
what is
it.
Weird. So you've talked a little bit about your situation as a counselor, and I know, like with my health insurance, it doesn't cover couples counseling or family counseling, and I've heard other people describe it the way you're talking about. But when my wife and I went into couples counseling, it wasn't covered, and we had to pay out of pocket. And I wanted, I didn't feel right asking them to lie. Like, I wanted to call them up and be like, hey, man, don't you know the scam? Like, how come you're not running this scam for me so you can push this through my insurance so that I can get covered for this?
Yeah. I mean, it's crazy that like insurance will not cover couples or families counseling in almost all cases. And the fact is, like, it's our couples and our families and our local communal relationships that are really the problem at the source of all these things, right? It's nobody lives in a vacuum. And so all these things create the environment of the struggle, and it's much better when we can address them at that level.
Yeah. Well, and I found it funny that like if I were in that situation, I would be totally okay with lying about it, but I was really uncomfortable like talking to someone else about lying on my behalf. Like that was uncomfortable. I didn't want to ask the counselor to do that.
Ooh, is there people? And I'm sure there are, but I feel like I don't know anybody that's comfortable asking others to lie for them. Yeah. Not personally or closely. I mean, I've come into contact with people, but that feels weird. That
but you haven't
yucky.
Had clients ask you that? Like, hey, can you? Or...
No. And I would be less inclined to do it if they did ask.
If they asked you to do it.
Yeah, it's weird.
I feel like you're being set up.
Yeah, it's like, why? That's weird. Why are you asking me for that, right? Like, I don't know. That is interesting that when people ask you to lie, it feels different.
Would I feel better with like a wink and a nod? Like, I want to come for individual counseling because my insurance doesn't cover family counseling, which is what I really need. Like, wink, wink.
No, it wouldn't feel any better. It would still feel weird. And I think that's one of the things I came into when I was reading up on honesty was this idea that like most lying that we look at as bad, God, I'm going to butcher the shit out of this, but it was basically the idea that the lying that's bad is when it is lying for the purpose of self-gain.
Right.
And so that comes into, like, I feel like that is someone asking me to lie for their self-gain.
Oh, yeah.
Which doesn't feel right to me. Huh. Even though I don't have any problem lying for their gain, but I feel like that's altruistic.
But the judgment you would place on it. Yeah, that's interesting.
It is interesting.
And the other part of honesty I took away from listening before, talking about this before, was the honesty. I understand that or for me, what I understand in recovery is the self-honesty that I need to get me through, to cover like the nostalgia of using and those things. You know, I heard you and Jenny talk on the nostalgia episode about that euphoric recall and that kind of stuff.
Right.
Like that's where in my personal recovery, honesty is kind of hyper important. Like I can't diminish the consequences of my using. I can't minimize the things that I lied about or did to harm other people in my using, because that helps keep that euphoric recall going.
Right. Yeah, that's interesting. So one of the things that I wanted to come into this was with the levels of honesty. So I was trying to look up levels of honesty, and what I found was there is no like universal levels of honesty. There's a whole lot of different theories. Like one was like a list of 5 levels, and first it was me being honest with me, and then me being honest with you about me, and then me being honest with me about you, and then me being honest with you about you, and then me being honest with everything about everything, which was so
Yeah.
It was an interesting list, but I couldn't find much. Like it hurt my brain to kind of think more about it. I was like,
And
wow.
honesty in that perspective seems almost like love. Like we use this word love, and we all think we have a universal understanding of what it means, but that word can mean so many different things. I love my
Right.
wife, I love my kids, I love my dog, I love ice cream. It's like those aren't the same.
Yeah.
They all mean different things. I love my friends, but do I love my friends the same as I love my wife and my kids? That's probably some difference there.
Yeah.
But we use this word love, and when I say I love my wife or my kids, you probably think you know what I mean by when I say I love my wife and my kids, because you love your wife and kids.
Right.
And we all
right.
think we're using this the same way, and honesty falls into that same category for me. It's like there's that. I've heard it cash register honesty, the money honesty, and then there's self-honesty, and then there's, well, I don't feel good and I want to miss a day at work and I'm not really sick, but is it okay to call the boss and say, oh, I'm not feeling so great, I'll talk to you tomorrow? Like,
That's self-care.
right.
It's not dishonesty.
And it's like where that falls in this level of honesty or dishonesty.
Well, and something I never consider generally, like when I meet a random person on the street and they're like, I love my kids, I don't ever think, oh, they probably love their kids the same way they love their wife. Even though we know that is true sometimes,
Right.
Unfortunately, right?
Yeah,
That's
gross.
right. And hopefully they're not loving their ice cream the same way they love their wife. That's a little freaky, right? Well, I mean, maybe that one's all right, actually. But right, behind closed doors, you're good. So yeah, it's really fascinating, the different honesty pieces. Another one I found talked about level 1 of honesty is revealing the facts. And it says the first level is about revealing the facts of what you've done and clearing up lies from the past. Here you tell your parents what you've done, and you tell your partner when you've cheated, and your friends when you've lied. You're confronting and undoing the image you've been selling to everyone about yourself. This kind of reminded me of like steps 4 through 9. It's like, well, that's interesting. And then it goes on to level 2, which is honesty about current thoughts and feelings. I was like, oh, that's step 10, right? It says the second level is about current thoughts and feelings. You tell the truth about how you feel, when you feel it, and reveal your secret petty judgments. This level confronts your learned habit of manipulating, strategizing, and having secret plans. And then it goes on to a third level of exposing the fiction. And it said the third level is about demythologizing yourself, which I like that idea.
Yeah.
Demythologizing yourself. It's about admitting you don't really know who you are and that you developed your act in order to not appear lost. It's a broader level of truth-telling that exposes the whole game. And I thought that was kind of fascinating, right? Because I feel like none of us do that. We all have this self-concept that we're like salesmen. We sell it to ourselves and we're like, yeah, that's who the fuck I am. That's who I'll be, right? And no, we're not. We're just fucking a blob of cells.
Yeah, and that's, 6 and 7 stuff. Like I get into digging into what are really my assets and what are my character defects and what things have I told myself that really aren't true. And that's been super helpful for me personally. Like I know what areas I'm weaker in. I can be honest with myself. And for example, I'm not great at organizational stuff, and I'm not great with money. And for the longest time, if you'd asked me, I'd have told you I was like, oh yeah, I don't want anybody. I manage my own money. I'm fine. I'm a man, God damn it. I can take care of myself. And then like that just kept me like financially all messed up. And until I could like admit that and let my wife manage the finances and just be like, look, you take care of this. I'll let you know what I need. I'll talk to you before I go buy something extravagant. We'll talk about it. Like, I'm okay with that. And that it wasn't that I was being dishonest about it before. I think I was more in denial. But it took like some work to look at that and be like, oh shit, I'm not good with money. And not only that, I've tried to be good with money and I'm still not. So it's easier just to accept that, you know, the self-honesty that I am a terrible money manager.
Yeah, I did the same thing. I thought I was great at everything, and what I did was just not see the places where I wasn't great and blamed others for why things didn't work out. And yes, there's times when we can surround ourselves with people who are good at those things or hand tasks off to people who do them better. And there's also the ability that once we own I'm not good at remembering things. Well, now I have a calendar list so I don't forget things, right? Like I can employ new tactics once I own my weaknesses or my shortcomings or things that just I don't do well. I don't want to call them weaknesses or shortcomings. Like, I mean, what the fuck? We can't do everything great.
Right.
Like, we just got to see that. You know, that level 3 part goes on and talks about starting the process of acknowledging that we are a secret hero in our minds. And I thought that was a fascinating way to say it. Right. I'm like running into burning buildings and shit. Right.
Everybody knows.
And it says, you know, praising yourself openly rather than trying to manipulate praise for yourself through others and bragging about things you pretend you don't care about. And that, you know, this idea that like we want this acclaim or high, you know, appeal or whatever it is, high appraisal of ourselves, but we want it to come from outside of us. And I feel like that's all tied into that self-worth and low self-esteem and this idea that like I need others to rightfully put me in the place I need to be. Right? Why haven't they made me king of the United States yet? God damn it. They don't see.
But do you find everywhere you go, you feel like, I should be running this shit? Like, why, why did they not ask me to be in charge?
I mean, I would do this so much better.
Right.
God damn it. So, yeah, that was an interesting take on the levels of honesty. There some other things I found talking about if you have someone's best interest at heart, might be a time when it's okay to lie. Right? We look at times when we say honesty always, but like looking at times when maybe it's better to be dishonest. And so if you have someone's best interests at heart, and it says the classic examples of lying where it's detrimental and the most damaging kinds of lies tend to be those that promote your own self-interest at the expense of others. And I thought that was interesting, that maybe the honesty portion isn't so much about being honest. It's about what are your motives, right? Another Buddhism thing, like what's your intention? What are you trying to accomplish here? And anytime you're trying to fulfill your own personal gain at the expense of someone else, that's really when you don't want to.
Yeah, and I mean, this just reminded me of that episode where we talked about these like recovery sayings and that one that spiritual principles are never in conflict.
Right.
And I don't know that I can say that's 100% wrong, but it can get pretty tricky when it gets into this area of honesty and, you know, is it always possible? Is it possible to be honest in every situation and still be loving and caring? You know, is that, can those two things exist at the same time? I mean, sometimes it certainly feels like they can't, you know, and maybe I'm just doing it wrong, but boy, is that a fucking tough road to find sometimes, that balance of honesty and some of these other principles.
Yeah. And I got a quiz for us in a little while that I think is going to bring up some of those examples of, you know, when lying to protect someone we love or someone we care about might be best. And that's another place where this goes into. It talks about pro-social lies. Fibs intended to benefit others can actually build trust between people, according to research. And I found that to be interesting. And I look at that and I think, so when it talks about, you know, promoting my own self-interest at the expense of others, I think of people who cheat in relationships, right? Their self-interest is to, A, have a new experience outside of their relationship, but B, still be looked at as a good person. And that's why they lie, and at the expense of, you know, their partner who believes they are being faithful. And then I hear this pro-social lies, the fibs to benefit others, and I think of like, yeah, this is when if I dealt with people trying to access, you know, government benefits or some other benefit that existed, and the rules seem to be bullshit to me of why they don't qualify, I have no problem lying to benefit them, right? Like, that's, fucking yeah. I want you to get everything that should be coming to you in my mind.
So have you ever had, and this just reminded me of a situation I was in, have you ever had a either friend or sponsee in recovery either ask you to write something or to show up for them at court on their behalf?
I have not.
Oh, okay. So I've had those situations, and that's always interesting because, of course, you feel like depending on what level of friend they are, like how much do I want to say, what am I okay saying they're doing?
Well, why?
Well, because who wants somebody that like, so here was the example. I had a guy, I was sponsoring him. He was a couple of months into recovery at the time. He had been going to meetings and was doing some stuff, and his lawyer or whoever wanted a letter or something to take to court. And now this goes back a long time, but and I feel like at that time I probably embellished a little more than giving like an honest assessment of where I thought he would be. And of course he didn't stick around and stay clean, but it might have kept him out of jail. And I don't know if that's the wrong
thing. You killed him,
like
Billy. You kept him out of jail and killed him.
Right. I could have. Yeah. Hey, that could be. No, he's not dead, but it's that pressure of like, oh, I'm supposed to say a certain thing here. And this is someone early in recovery. I don't want to mess them up and have them go to jail and have their...
Well, right. And honestly, I mean, according to this, and I would think so too, you probably benefited your relationship with them by saying something closer to what they wanted to hear. Like that would be that pro-social fib, right? But why... I guess why the hesitancy? Like if they end up committing more crimes and going to prison, are they going to come back to you and be like, "You wrote this letter, Billy. You're in trouble now." Like,
no. Well, it was just a matter of that concept of like honesty at all costs, no matter what. In that case, I don't know that I was honest at all costs. I didn't give like, well, my years of sponsoring people, he's got about a 50-50 chance at this point because he goes to meetings regularly, but he, hasn't taken all the suggestions, which, all that's bullshit. But
right.
Most people don't stick around anyway, so it's easy to say, yeah, he's here doing this, but most people don't make it.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like in that case, and maybe not previously, but I look at it now and I'm like, fuck yeah, I'll say whatever. Like, who cares? It doesn't come back to haunt me in any way. Like,
yeah,
that's interesting.
I don't think it was the wrong thing to do, and I would probably do the same thing again.
I think it's worse when you're like telling somebody and trying to get them a job, like because then I feel like it has. We talked about that a little in the work episode or whatever. Like,
yeah, I won't do that for people for work.
No,
nope,
not at all.
Fuck court, but work's different. I mean, I don't know. I don't know why. That's a different thing.
I guess because it comes back to haunt you a little bit.
I was going to say, I feel like some of that has to do with my personal professional integrity.
Your ego?
Not so much my ego, because I know that's another one of those things where you can know someone and they have some great values and them still be either terrible employees or whatever. But just there's a professional level of honesty to me that should trump my personal feelings.
Yeah, I don't know. I did ask a guy to come to court for me one time, and he was like, "I don't go to court for people in recovery." I went to jail.
Yeah,
I was like, "Well, fuck him."
Right.
I mean, I don't know that it would have made any difference, but I'm like, damn.
I mean, were you in recovery at the time, like going to meetings and doing
so
stuff?
I had like 18 months about, and he had been my sponsor at the end of that time, and I went out for 3 months, and I had come back and been back for like 2 months. And then I was going to court to face the charges that I had gotten while I was out there. So I was back and established, and he was my sponsor again, and we were like doing step work, and yeah, he was like, "No, I don't do that." I was like, damn.
Wow.
It hurt my feelings just that he wouldn't show up, honestly.
He missed his pro-social lying opportunity.
I mean, he could have just been pro-social honest.
Right.
I just show the fuck up.
Right.
Another time they say it's best to lie. Best to lie. That's an interesting statement. Would be if there's no time to change. And it says, say your partner asks how he or she looks right before walking on stage for a speaking event, or inquires what you think of the speech just prior to reaching the podium. Even if you were to notice a stain on their outfit or think the speech could use some work, the fact that they don't have any time to actually react to honest information or control the situation means it's best just to lie. And I find that fascinating. Like instead of sending them in with, those
low
bad
confidence
vibes,
or
right?
whatever, yeah.
So yeah, you don't tell the truth when there's no time to actually adjust to the information.
Huh.
And I think that's kind of
interesting.
fascinating. Yeah. It says lying in this sense is seen as benefiting the other person because there's truly nothing they could do anyway. And so at least they're going in with, that level of confidence or thinking everything's all right. It says if they do have the time to react, then you might want to reconsider the lie, though. And another time it says if you're giving constructive criticism is another time when it might be okay to lie. It says when sharing feedback, honesty is important. And while it's easy to use I'm just being honest as an excuse for just being mean, brutal honesty isn't always the most effective way to get your message across. Instead of telling a low-performing employee that he's performing terribly, consider saying something like, you've had a rocky start, but everyone struggles at the beginning, and then segueing into constructive criticism. And so, yeah, I mean, I could totally see that. That definitely sounds much better than you're a piece of shit.
Right. This is never going to work.
Right. I mean, I think that does give them the opportunity to do something different, right? It sounds a whole lot different, but we would say, at least what I've always been taught, always honesty. That's what I've always been taught. You're always honest to a fault.
Yeah, or it's like that dishonest by omission. Like if you just don't, if someone asks you something and you don't give them the truth, then that's dishonest.
Right.
That's what I've heard.
Yeah. Well, and I think it is, but I think I'm learning that it's really not about 100% honesty. That is not necessarily the goal for my life, at least. I don't know about anybody else.
Right.
Another time it says it might be all right to lie would be right before a special occasion. The debate over lying is not only about whether honest information can help the situation, but also whether the information is delivered at the right time. One thing people care about is whether honest information will distract them from something important. Example, you hear your friend's company is expecting layoffs right before they leave for their wedding. Do you tell them? And it says in these situations, people tend to appreciate withholding the truth until later. Like, why ruin their wedding and honeymoon? I get it. You want to be prepared, but if you're just going to worry about something the whole time you're away and have nothing you can control in it anyway, like, what's the point? And it says, if your friend is about to leave for their honeymoon, they won't be in a position to preemptively explore other job opportunities. While every situation is different, consider asking yourself whether honesty in a situation like this would truly benefit the other person or simply be a distraction to one of their life events.
Yeah, and that, segues a little into our, the conversation we had around careers and jobs with Caroline. There's areas as a supervisor at my work that I have or know certain information that it isn't necessarily helpful to the guys that work for me to know. You know? Like it's probably better that they don't know because one, they're probably powerless to do anything about it anyway. It's not something that's within their control. And secondly, it's just going to create more worry and concern and it's not going to help anything. It doesn't feel like, to be honest, about situations that are not within their control. Right.
There's another piece of this and this was more of a comment by somebody than anything, but I found it pretty fascinating. It said the truth is honesty is often a veiled form of self-indulgence. And I was like, well, that's fascinating. And it goes on, so you don't have to look too confused. But the idea that honesty could just be me wanting to unload some feeling I'm having, which really was fascinating to me. And so it said, when feelings build up, it's frustrating to sit with them. And of course, it feels damn good to release them. That feel-good sensation is a form of gratification. It's like an emotional poop, which provides an instant release of pressure. But when we dump emotional turds on others, we are flushing our relationships down the toilet. While we may feel temporarily relieved when we shoot off rounds of honesty, we pay a terrible price for this temporary satisfaction as we harm our relationships and our own self-esteem because you don't feel proud of yourself afterwards. And I found that to be fascinating. There was another piece on here that was about brutal honesty and what that really means and like the 3 facts about people who are brutally honest. And number 3 was that they call themselves brutally honest people.
You're right.
But the other 2 were that like facts are a very subjective experience. Like we call them facts as if they're universal truths, but the people who practice this brutal honesty tend to share their opinions as facts.
As facts, yeah.
And really believe that they're facts. Like, and this person was somebody who worked in customer service. So they were relating that people would call up and be like, after a price increase, the people would be like, this service costs too much. That's just a fact. And stuff like that. And he's like, what? And they would be like super mean about it. And he would explain, like, look, you know, this was clearly stated to you months ago. You have the option to not have the service. Like, that's an option for you. You could switch services. Like, any of these things are possible. And the people were like in refusal to accept that the price went up, basically.
Right.
And it's like, wow, yeah. So maybe honesty is this self-indulgence, this like, we call it honesty, but we're really just don't know how to sit with the way we feel about something. And so we take it out on someone else through our honesty.
Yeah. And in that vein, I was just thinking so my wife and I have been watching quite a few different shows lately, and recognizing how like the world portrayed through like whatever mainstream television, fucking people just lie all the time. Like that is their go-to for problems is just to lie. And that seems to be just completely okay with a lot of these shows. And as people in recovery, we kind of recognize it. Like, why don't they just tell the truth there? Like, it's going to be a little bit uncomfortable, but I mean, I guess lying makes for good TV or something. But at least in her and I talking about, we're like, is that really how the world works? Like how the world sees itself is that people just lie all the time about half the time very mundane things that aren't really that important, you know, but they'll still lie for very self-interest reasons. Sad.
I don't know. I wonder. I don't know. So that's interesting. So I'm trying to think of like people I know. And I mean, people I generally interact with, I assume are telling the truth most of the time. But yeah, I've definitely been around people who lie pretty much all the fucking time about anything and everything. And sometimes for seemingly no reason. But it is fascinating. I wonder how much the average person actually lies.
Well, I can say from my work experience that it's surprising to a lot of people when we're completely honest about stuff at work. I mean, there's times we make mistakes or we tell people like, you know, we do troubleshooting on heating equipment, and there's not always like an easy, oh, your thing broke because of this reason, and here's what it needed to fix it. Sometimes like you're doing a little bit of guesswork. Sometimes you just you don't know. You don't have a good answer to like why your heater's making this noise, and sometimes we got to tell like, oh, we don't know. You know, we can start changing parts if you want to start us. We'll start changing a bunch of parts, but a lot of times we go into it and say, look, we're not really exactly sure what's going on here. You know, if you want, we can start changing some parts and making some guesses, but if we're wrong, you don't get that money back, or we can just wait and see if it gets... And people don't always know how to take that. Or telling people like, oh yeah, well, I'm sorry, we made a mistake. You know, we made a mistake and we'll take it, you know, and you'll get the, well, why? Well, because we're human beings and not everyone's perfect all the time and shit happens. I mean, that's right. You know, and people are often, I think they very much appreciate it, but you can tell that that's not what they're used to hearing. Right.
Yeah, I would, wow. I wish there was a way to like, I don't even know how to state it, like how much I think the average person tells the truth versus lies. Like, I don't know if I give that in a percent or like, is it 50-50? I would bet. If I actually wrote down everything I did and had like a truth professor look at it, I would probably say I lie way more than I realize.
Oh, sure. I don't how many people just say, you ask them how they're doing and they're like, oh, I'm great.
Oh, that's every fucking
right.
Everybody tells that lie.
Fucking everybody's so great, man. We should not be having all the strife we have in the world. If everybody's walking around so great.
Living the dream.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, Facebook, you know, is just a not or accurate representation of their daily life. Like, this episode has been brought to you in part by Voices of Hope, Inc., a nonprofit recovery organization made up of people in recovery, family members, and allies. Together, members strive to protect the dignity of those that use drugs and those in recovery by advocating for treatment, harm reduction and support resources, and mentoring. Please visit us at www.voicesofhopemaryland.org and consider donating to our cause.
ready to get into this quiz?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right, honesty quiz. Question number 1. Your very self-conscious partner has clearly gained some weight. Your partner asks you point blank if they look fat. Do you tell the truth?
No, I would not.
Do you lie?
So I would say something like, I think you're beautiful, something along those lines. I would,
That seems like totally avoiding the answer.
That's exactly what I would do.
You would just avoid it.
Yes.
Is avoiding the answer a lie?
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, yes, I would say it is. That's why I said I would lie. I wouldn't be like, oh, no, I don't think But
I feel
and
like
that becomes my justification, though, because it's a truth,
Right. But, and this is interesting. So they've gained some weight. It doesn't actually say if they're fat or
Right.
not. Like, and what is fat, right? I'm sure it's different for each person. And are
that's
they...
it. See, I've said a truth, not the truth.
So that's a fascinating... I'm wondering, like, what would I say? I would probably try to acknowledge the reality and the feeling of it. Like, I think that's the route I would go. Like, oh, I can tell you're really concerned about that. That must really hurt your feelings to think that your worth is based in, how you look, or you don't feel good about how you've been treating your body lately. That's got to be really tough.
Yeah.
I feel like that's a great misdirection. It sounds really compassionate too, but I feel like that's a great, like, yeah, I can avoid answering this altogether with something really nice.
Yeah. Well, I don't know if I want to say this, but I'm going to say it anyway because I don't think my wife listens anymore. So she'll say things all the time about like plastic surgery in different ways. Like, oh, I'm going to go get this surgery or that surgery so I can be like so-and-so or whatever. And I'll say, oh, I don't, I love you just the way you are. I don't want you to be fake or be something you're not, which is kind of true. But at the same time, who doesn't want a woman with nice big full breasts or
right.
They look nice.
Yeah, I mean, my wife had breast surgery. Here's the interesting thing. I'd always thought it would be a great idea, right? And then after we scheduled it, I got really, really worried about it. I was like, what if she dies, like going under anesthesia or something?
Breast surgery.
Right. I was like, holy fuck. Or how shallow does this make me, or what does this really say about me and her? Like, do we not accept, like, I'm trying to be this guy who accepts who I am and all this things, and what does this mean about me? And I don't know. I can say the after effects is I'm very happy. Yes. I guess that makes me whoever the fuck it makes me, but
Wow,
it's been nice.
Yeah,
I don't know. So yeah, I think I think if I was caught off guard, probably the thing that I would answer about, am I fat or do I look fat would be like, I mean, well, yes, you have put on some weight, but it doesn't look as bad as you think it does, or something along the lines of like, it's not something, that's not how I view your worth. So like, that's not everything I'm looking at when I look at you. And
yeah, I would say that.
Something along those lines. All right. So we don't tell the truth there. There's number 1. We're liars on question 1. All right. Question 2. The person you've been dating for a couple months is excited to have finally met your closest friends. However, it turns out that your friends don't like your new love interest at all. When your date asks what your friends thought of them, do you spill the beans? You say, my friends hated you. Right?
If my date asked...
Like, how the... Yeah. Oof. No, I'm lying. I ain't telling the total truth there. That's for damn sure.
Yeah, I don't think I would tell the truth there either.
Wow. So we're liars on 2 of these already.
Yeah.
I mean, how can you? Nah, my friends fucking hate you. Like, what?
Right. Now, what about the other way around? Would you, if your girlfriend hated all your friends, would you tell your friends?
Ooh, probably not.
Yeah,
because that makes her
that
look
way
bad.
either, right? Right. I want all the people I like to get along with each other. I can't have you guys not liking each other.
Right. So that's interesting because I've run into some people who talk about not liking their partner's friends or their partner's friends being bad influences. And I'm like, do these people have insight their partner doesn't have? And why are they with that partner if all the partner's friends suck?
I don't think he ever listens to this. So I'll say my brother, like not the biggest fan of his wife, but I'm not going to tell him.
Huh.
Somebody else can tell him now, I guess.
I can't believe
I
you
don't think
told
it's
us.
a shock, yeah.
All right. Wow, we're liars, Billy.
Yeah.
Okay, here we go. Oh, this is fucked up. You're about to have sex for the first time with a new love interest. Just as you're getting started, your partner asks if you've been tested for an STD. You haven't, but you're pretty sure you're clean. Do you tell your partner that you haven't been tested?
Oh.
Fuck, right. How hot are they?
Right. How long's it been since? I would think in my life now I would probably be honest, but probably 10 years ago, probably not. Or, early in recovery, definitely not. Like or when I was using, definitely not any kind of like, oh yeah, I got tested yesterday.
Just got the results back on the phone this morning, actually. I'm going to try to be self-honest here. I like to think that I would say that I have not been tested if I have not been tested. But man, given the right situation, I could definitely see me lying if it was something I didn't want to not happen.
Yeah.
Ooh. Wow. Okay. So I'm gonna put yes for that. That we would definitely tell. Just because that might be that we would definitely tell the truth because that might be the only one that we tell the truth. Your new mother-in-law gives you an absolutely hideous sweater for your birthday. What do? Only wear it when she's visiting, wait a few months and then tell her you lost it, admit that it's not your style.
I would take it and probably never wear it.
Yeah, it's not an option on here. I think I would too, though. Or...
if she ever asked, I would just say, oh, yeah, I don't know where that is. I would say that I lost it. So I guess to say that I lost it would probably be closer to the truth.
I actually told somebody the other day, and that's interesting. So my therapy advice to people is lie sometimes. Like when the truth doesn't seem like it's going to be beneficial to anyone. Like I feel like you would hurt somebody's feelings, possibly. Like you might be able to tell, depending on this individual, but you don't know her. Like she's your new mother-in-law, right?
Right.
You might be able to tell her, like, I just don't feel like I'm ever going to wear this. Is there, a receipt? I can take it back and get something I'd like more, maybe. But I feel like I think I told somebody the other day, hey, look, just put it on and go get like 5 different pictures of you in it in different places with like your hair done different. And then it'll look like you used it a bunch of times.
And I just thought I would probably like lie about it. And then a couple of years later, like if we maintained a relationship and we're open with each other, be like, yeah, you got me that sweater. That shit was hideous. I never wore that. It went in the trash.
So later truth.
Went to the Goodwill. Yeah, right. Later truth.
Does it hurt less later?
Well, that's where it depends on the relationship. Like, hopefully you would know that person by then. As you mentioned, it's a new mother-in-law, so I don't know how they would take it. There's certain people in my life that if they got me something I didn't like, I mean, if my wife got me a shirt and I didn't like it, I would be like, oh, that's not really my style. I'm going to take that back.
Right.
But if it was my kids, I don't know. I would probably keep it, So it's not like I will always lie to spare someone's feelings. It depends on the person and how I think that's going to affect them.
Huh. You don't think it would hurt your wife's feelings? And
no.
why couldn't you tell your kids that?
Because I would think so. And again, it would depend on the kid almost, I would say. Like if they're younger, I mean, now they're getting a little older, so they're more like adults.
Right.
But if it was my kid, I would want them to think that I loved it and that it was great and they did a great job.
Kids can't handle the truth.
Is it about they can't handle the truth, or is it about is the lie going to be more hurtful than just saying it's great? That's where it's like I don't know that the benefit outweighs the harm.
I'm just gonna start wearing hideous clothes when people give them to me. Fuck it. Right. Not lying no more. God damn it. Things are financially tight for you, so you decide to sell your car. The car has broken down several times over the last 6 months. Do you tell your potential buyer? Yes, I disclose everything that's wrong with it. No way. Kind of. I'll say that it may need a few minor repairs.
Probably closer to the third, although I will say that I am typically yes, I'll tell them everything. because we've sold a few things. We've sold campers and stuff that have needed work. And when people buy shit from me, I will stand there and start rattling off all the shit that's wrong with it when they buy it, because I feel so guilty. Because I've bought shit used, and then I'm mad when I get a bunch of problems. So what we've done more recently is I let my wife handle that stuff, because she's better at selling stuff than me, and I'll give them all the stuff that's wrong with it, even if they don't ask. I'm not good at that stuff.
Damn, so you copped out. I just avoid the situation where I have to decide if I'm going to be honest or hurt myself.
Yeah, that's where I just let my wife handle it. That's the copping out part.
Yeah. I'll let her handle if she's going to lie or tell the truth. She can have that on her, given her on her conscience. Yeah, I don't know. I feel like this is why I don't ever want to sell shit to people.
No,
because I don't like it. Like if I sell some shit on eBay from time to time, and I'll be as thoroughly honest as I can, right? Because I don't want people to be disappointed. Like, look, this has this little crack. Here's a picture of it. This is what it, still works fine, whatever. But I have never wanted to sell like a car to a person, especially a person I know.
Yeah, definitely not someone I know.
No. Like, I'll just give it to the fucking dealership and they can give me whatever they're giving me.
I mean, we're in that situation now, and half of me is, I'd say angry, but half of me is torn on. We purchased a used car from my sister-in-law, and she was the owner. I've known her for 20 years. I've been with my wife 20 years, and she doesn't seem like the kind of person that would lie or take advantage of us. But, man, we got this car, and it needs a shit ton of work, and I'm like, Christ, this car needs more work than it's even worth, and now we just bought it from her, and yeah, it's really awkward, and it makes me think, is she a liar? Like, is she
she is
did she
definitely
rip
a
us
liar.
The fuck off?
I don't know if she ripped you off intentionally, but she is definitely a liar, as we've established. Everyone is a liar.
That's true, but yeah, it feels very awkward. It definitely has affected my view of her.
Well, we bought a car from a dealership a few years back, and it was like $3,500 or something, and that fucking thing has been a disaster of like shit break-in, shit already broke, shit was cracked when we got it, and like it's like, fuck, man, I don't want that. I want like something certified from now on.
Right.
Like, fuck all that.
Right.
All right, question 6. I wanted to say, you talked about, does honesty afterwards hurt less? And I don't know. So I dated, it was like my first love, kind of. And she had, after we started dating, like a month later, kissed this boy that she used to date at his house on the way home from school. All right, whatever. It hurt, but I got over it, moved on. So like 3 years later, we've been broken up for like 2 years. And she's like, remember when I told you I kissed that boy at his house? I was like, yeah. She's like, yeah, I slept with him. I was like, oh. Now, looking at that rationally, it probably hurt less than it would have when she actually did it. Yeah. But it still hurt like a motherfucker.
Yeah,
I was like, ooh, that's brutal. You should have just never told me.
Yeah, she must not done that 9-step with a sponsor.
No, she was clearing her conscience.
So, and that's one of those things in our 9-step, that it talks about when you make that amends. It's like, is it going to be harmful to other people for me to go be honest with them about a situation?
Yeah.
No.
Well, and that was a situation. She was relieving her burden, but she gave it to me.
Right.
That's not cool. I didn't like that at all. Keep that shit to yourself.
Bad sponsorship information.
Yeah. Your ex calls you out of the blue and wants to catch up. Do you tell your partner about the call?
Yes.
Yeah, I feel like I do there too, because I don't really care.
Yeah.
That was an easy one. A cashier accidentally gives you an extra $20. Do you give the money back?
Yes.
Yeah, same here. See, there's ways we're honest.
Yeah.
Not totally shitty. You're on vacation in the Bahamas and you really, really want to stay an extra day. You could easily call your boss and tell them the flight was delayed. Do you get your butt home on time? No. No, if I really want to stay an extra day, I tell the truth.
Yeah.
I'm like, I'm just staying an extra fucking day.
Yeah, I'm the same way. I would stay another day and just say, hey, we're staying another day. Is it going to be a problem?
See, I probably wouldn't even ask.
Yeah, I would say it in that way and then be like, oh, well, I'm not coming anyway.
Right.
Let me rephrase that. I'm not going to be there.
Right. Yeah, I think I've learned to avoid giving people the option to like turn down what I want.
Well, it's funny because I kind of have as well. I've noticed that in my life. I will ask certain things even though I already know what the answer is,
Right.
but I'll ask it like I'm asking.
Yeah.
And I've tried to get better at that, actually.
I don't do that much anymore. I'm like, hey, I'm not. It's not no longer like, can I call out today? I'm sick. It's like, yeah, I'm not coming.
Right. Yeah.
Very
and I've
direct.
got the same. Yeah.
This
I've
is what
gotten
I'm
better at
doing.
that stuff.
Hope that works for you.
Right.
Oh, here's one. You just had sex with your significant other and it wasn't very enjoyable for you. Do you tell them? This is a dumbass question because when is it not?
I was going to say, I'm trying to think of times we've had sex that's not enjoyable.
Yeah. Does that exist? For,
not for men, I mean.
Right. Not really
That's a question for a female, not really a man. I mean, no. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't imagine I would tell them.
Yeah.
I might. I mean, what could make it unenjoyable? That's what I'm trying to. I'm like, if there was something unenjoyable, could I like tell them, oh, hey, I wasn't really a fan of this. Let's do it more like this next time. But I can't even imagine what wouldn't be enjoyable.
Right.
Wow. Yeah, we need Jenny or somebody else on here to answer this. Caroline.
Yeah.
Somebody needs to come on and answer this for us. Right in, ladies. Tell us about your unenjoyable experiences, and if you
tell men when it's not enjoyable.
And number 10, your boss's breath really stinks. Do you tell them?
No.
No?
I don't tell anybody when their breath stinks. I just back up 5 feet.
You're like, shouldn't we be wearing masks in this conversation?
Right.
It's COVID, boss.
Yeah, haven't you heard about Omicron here? Here's a mask.
Huh. Do I tell them? I don't know. I think the situation matters. Like, are they getting ready to go meet the president or something? I'm probably going to fucking tell them.
So I tell people, like, if they have something, like, on their face or if they have something in their teeth, like, that stuff. But bad breath is a tough one. I feel like, I don't know. That seems different.
So going by our guidance earlier, if they were going to a special event to meet somebody important, so to speak, and they had time to change it, I'm probably telling them.
Yeah.
If they don't have time to change it, I'm like, you smell great.
Yeah. And we have really awkward situations at work.
Sure.
Yeah, so when we do service or we have a history of people that have, like, roaches or gross stuff in their house, like, that's hard to be honest with people about.
I
like,
imagine
we
it
can't come
is.
into your house because you have cockroaches.
Huh. So you just don't, that's interesting. Like, you just don't go do it?
No.
Wow.
Mm-mm. I mean, because would you want to be... so I try to deal with it like if it was me and I had to go to their house and I walked into someone's house and they had a bunch of cockroaches, would I want to be in there? You know what I mean? Would I want to put myself in that situation?
No.
Or
but
basements that are full of asbestos piping or any other number of weird...
I thought that was just part of the job, though.
Asbestos is easier. No, well, the other one will be animals. People lock their fucking animals in their basement and then let them shit and piss all over the floor and then want us to go down there and work on the heater. Like, that's pretty gross. So, yeah. So there are definitely situations where we don't go into people's houses and it's pretty nasty.
Wow. Yeah, that's
And then what do you tell them? Trying to be honest with them on the phone about that.
You got to clean up your dog shit and get the smell of the piss out? I don't know. Yeah, that's weird.
That's what... Well, typically we have a kind of wording. I'll be like, yeah, the conditions there really aren't safe to put our employees in, and unless it can be cleaned up substantially, that would have to be done before we can come back. And most people, it's interesting. Most people, when you tell them that, will clean it up. Like, they're aware. It's just still awkward and uncomfortable.
Yeah, I bet it is. That is fucking weird. Huh. Yeah, I'm glad I'm not in that situation. So, your score is a 35. Although you recognize that honesty is generally the best policy, you also know that the truth hurts and can lead to arguments. Statistics show that people tell, on average, 7 white lies a day, from saying, I'm fine, we talked about that one, when they're having a terrible day, to complimenting someone on an outfit that they actually dislike. You are no exception. You allow yourself the occasional guilt-free fib depending on the situation and the importance of the withheld information. You probably don't intend to be dishonest. When you do tell a lie, it's probably the most practical solution in a tricky situation. Of course, you may also tell a few lies in order to save your butt, but honestly, who wouldn't do that? As long as you use sound judgment, your lying is probably harmless, but think twice about the consequences before shading the truth. Huh.
Yeah. I mean, I would say that's pretty accurate.
I'm just fascinated. I mean, coming from a place where it's like complete honesty and you got a fucking 35 and they're like, you passed.
What's the high score?
100.
100?
I guess. I'm assuming that
Does
was
it
like...
give you any other results? Like, can you read what the other results are? No.
Nah,
Okay.
but I'm assuming you gave a 35 out of 100 honest. Like, I'm assuming you were honest less than half of the time in those situations they gave.
So our society is full of liars. TV has it right.
Yes. Yes, they have it absolutely right.
People just lie all the time, and that's just the way it is.
Even people who think they're practicing complete honesty are only doing it 35% of the time. Wow. So yeah, that's fascinating. So what do you take out of all this?
For myself, I try to judge my whatever white lies or dishonesty by what the impact will be and how, harmful or hurtful it'll be towards others. I minimize a lot of things. If it's to a big company or a corporation or somebody that's not an individual and it feels like it's not going to be very harmful, it's way easier for me to justify those kind of lies than it is to like my kids or my significant other or a close personal relationship. Like those are areas that I think are more sacred, and that it feels more damaging to lie. So.
Yeah, and I think this new concept of looking at it as a balance, right? Like it's not really about being 100% honest like I've always considered that it is. Like this 35, right? And granted, these are very selected situations where we were talking about. And so maybe if you just maybe if they added in like normal everyday situations too, along with these very select, like hard ones, maybe your score is like 60 or something. But it was more about being balanced in the middle than it was about being at either extreme, right? You don't want to be the 0 or the 100. You really want to be near the 50 of like, I'm taking into consideration honesty is important, but also taking into consideration people's feelings. And
they should be lying 50% of the time.
Apparently, yeah. We should be misguiding people 50% of the time is the goal.
No, I still think honesty is, if you can do it in a loving, compassionate way, is still what I want to do most of the time.
I don't think that exists.
Yeah.
That's what I'm starting to wonder. I'm gonna evaluate this honesty as more of a balance from now on and see what happens. I want to really see how often I lie too.
I'm still gonna try to be honest as much as possible.
Yeah, I don't want to lie when there's no reason to. That's for sure. But I think I'm just seeing a lot more cases where there might be a reason to. Now, granted, the lie I told last night, there was no reason for that. Like I thought it was going to help me, but again, I thought it was going to help me.
So here's a weird, with the lying, like maybe we should be lying 50% of the time. Like when I go into whatever, Wawa and the cashier behind the counter and saying, oh, you look great today. Like whether she looks great or not. Like just saying, shit like that. Like it's probably a lie, but is it helpful? Is it going to make her feel better?
Right.
Right.
I feel like the world would be a better place. There you go. Go be liars. The world will be a better place. All right. See you next week. Did you like this episode? Share it with people you think might get something out of it. Check out the rest of our episodes at recoverysortof.com. Also, while you're there, you can find ways to link up with us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Reddit, YouTube, anything. We're always looking for new ideas. Got an idea you want us to look into? Reach out to us.